Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be going over a game called Final Fantasy VI, or Final Fantasy III in America. It came out in 1994. It was one of the first, epic, serious drama stories, Japanese role-playing games that I ever played for the Super Nintendo. So I hope you join me in going through all of the interesting characters in the game and what we can learn from it and what calls out to us in this game specifically. So for those of you that are interested, I'm currently going through a playthrough in this game on my other channel, the gaming channel. If you want to click on the banner in the top right there should be a link to it. I'll put a link in the description below as well. This was one of the first games that I got for like a Christmas present for the Super Nintendo. It's very interesting. So what I'm going to try to do is explain the story. Then I'm going to go over 3 characters in detail. Well, 4 technically. I'm going to go over Locke, Celes, and Terra. And I have to go over Kefka because he is the giant relational magnet that kind of draws them all together and then reflects life itself. So you start out as this girl who is under mind control driving Magi-Tech gear. It's like robotics fueled with magic. They go to this town looking for an Esper. You find out that Espers are just like magic creatures of pure magic or something like that. They have interesting abilities. And she leads them into this like snowy town. It has a very cinematic effect when you start the game, which is it's kind of rare for games to be like that really interested in the story. And the thing about Japanese role-playing games, or just like any game really, any good game, the reward you get for doing a function is the story itself, because stories are extremely meaningful. And if you're denying that, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, gameplay is one thing, but it's a story with the gameplay. Terra leads like 2 other soldiers, I guess from the Empire, into this city called Narsh, and they find the Esper. It's frozen, obliterates both of the other guys. She gets knocked unconscious. Then this character named Locke saves her. Her name's Terra. I forgot if I mentioned that. And Locke is like an adventurer, and he's always looking for things. He saves her because she needs help. That's like his agency. He sees someone in need, he helps them. That's a great role for the masculine. That's what you should do. And the little Moogles show up. They're like little pig things with red noses and bat wings. They're weird. And they help defend against the Narsh guards and, I guess, eventually the Empire. They start talking with her once she wakes up out of her slumber that she was in. And they figure that she can use magic. They take her down to a king. They are with the group called the Returners, which are like the rebellion against the Empire, because the Empire is trying to just seek full power. They want to conquer, destroy, and control using magic. And it's an echo from something in the past they call the War of the Magi, where I guess warrior mages just destroyed everything or something like that. So there's a lot of elements to this story that I will just have to skip because the whole game takes a while. There's like, 20 characters in the game, and each one has an in-depth story. So Terra gets introduced eventually to the leader, Banon. Banon says, we could use you in your help to repel the Empire and then maybe bring peace, because it turns out she eventually regains her memory. She is half Esper and half human. And they have this idea where maybe they can recruit the Espers to help them. There comes a point where they sneak inside the Magi-Tech facility, which is where the Empire was like fusing everything with magic from these Espers. And you find out that the Espers only can transfer their power once they've been totally exhausted. Like, you can't drain their power while they're alive. So you figure this out with the Magicite thing, and your characters, they get gifted these things as well. Terra leads a party of a whole bunch of people, and they try to open up the sealed gate where the Espers are. And the Espers, like, wreak havoc all over the globe, specifically the Empire. And the Empire feigns, like, yeah, they're too strong, we want peace. And then they double cross you, and they go into the Esper realm themselves, and they bring out these statues. At least they find the statues. They raise part of the continent into the sky. And you take your crew, and you have Celes at this point. So during one of those times when you're trying to unite your characters, you meet Celes. Now Celes, unlike Terra, who has her identity stolen from her, basically, Celes rejected what the Empire was doing. And she was banned. She was considered a traitor, not because she was caught doing something, but because she rejected their ideals. And like, the scene opens up with her chained on the wall, and the guard just beating her. And I'm like, holy crap. I was 13. I wasn't exposed to much stuff like this. And I didn't see this in like fantasy games or any of the games I was playing at the time. Like it just didn't. That seems rough. That seems pretty real. Like that could happen, and why would someone do that? So Locke saves her because she needs saving. He is like the agency of protection. So she's part of that whole party with Terra. They also get an airship, which is just, it's like in every Final Fantasy game you get an airship. So they have this floating continent. You have your party. You go up there to the floating continent. There's these statues that are magical. If you rearrange the statues, you rearrange the face of the planet. Seelis had been having some trust issues. One of the times, and the Magitech facility, Kefka, who is the sociopathic, psychopathic bad guy, calls to her and says, "Good job, General. Thanks for doing the work for us." And then all of her team starts to doubt her. And she's just like, "You guys gotta trust me." And so she teleports all the bad guys, including Kefka, away. Then you see her again later, and she rejoins the party, which is a good thing. Now the same thing happens on this floating island. And Kefka gives her a sword and says, kill your friends with this sword, and we'll forgive everything. And she instead stabs him. And so he goes ballistic. Everyone gets blown off the planet. He rearranges the statues. He kills his own emperor, so he's not subject to anything anymore. Rearranges the face of the planet, and the planet's in desolation. You wake up as Seelis, because you start out as Terra, focusing on her. Then you wake up as Seelis. Seelis has been asleep for a year, and she was taken care of by Sid. Now this part of the game is so, it gives me chills. This part of the game, you can choose to save Sid, or maybe you get bad RNG by feeding him fish because he's sick, or you don't feed him, or you feed him bad fish and he dies. And then Seelis gets so depressed, if you take in this angle in the game, she climbs to the top of the mountain and throws herself off. Like, it's really intense, dude. But she wakes up on a beach. It's like life won't let her die. And she sees, Locke's bandana, the person that saved her. And she becomes the backbone of the whole saving mission. She goes and finds a whole bunch, everybody. You can choose to find everybody. And then you go and you face Kefka, and you beat him, game over. So that's a brief summary of the game. And that doesn't... it's worth playing. The music itself, the atmosphere, just being so far ahead of its time as far as, production value goes. So that's a summary, but that's not in-depth. There's something about a game like this that'll call out to you. Now, why does it call out to you? You need to, at least I think so. You got to describe the characters. The characters in the story are what make it. So I'm going to start with Terra. I'm going to go with Seelis, Locke, and then I have to do Kefka, because it's hard. You can't do this game without Kefka. Kefka is necessary, because Kefka is what everyone in reality is also fighting against. That's why we can understand Kefka. So we'll start with Terra. Terra is a mixed race. She has her identity stolen, and she has the power of the unknown, this unknown thing called magic. She spends most of the game searching for her identity, searching for something to do, searching for a reason to live, searching for something to protect. Who knows, just a reason to exist. Because hers was taken from her, was stolen. You figure out they put the slave crown on her, and it wipes your memory for a while. So it was her identity was killed for temporarily. She's given the opportunity to explore both sides, both the Emperor, who made her do things that she didn't want to do, and the Returners, who did not like that at all. And she chose to be with the Returners and help them out because they needed saving from oppression, from the totalitarian oppression. That's one thing, putting everything else inside of a box. That's what totalitarianism is. It destroys the room for creativity. She meets General Leo. Now, General Leo is, I think, one of the pinnacle characters for her because it helps her explore love. What love is. General Leo is, they don't say much. They're on a boat together. But he is an honorable warrior working for the enemy. He believes in dignity to peoples, which is a good thing. The other thing that she has as an ideal is Locke. Locke is also a solid ground-based character. He saves her because she is worth saving. And this is how the masculine tells the feminine she's beautiful, not necessarily in a sexual sense, but just you're worthy of protection. And I'm going to protect you, and that's a duty you carry on your back, and that's Locke. What's interesting is, though, she does not find her place when the world is normal. She finds her place when the world's destroyed. When the children, you find her later, and she's, when Seelis is regaining the party, or searching for everybody. You find her, and she is defending this ruined town full of children. And she cannot leave. She's like, I can't fight. These children are the reason I have to live now. Like, eventually she does join you, but it takes a while, and she has to regain her strength and regain her competence and fortitude. And sometimes it takes time. It's like a wound that needs to heal. But she finds reason in protecting those that need protecting. Like, that's so cool. And she found it in the in the most desolate desert. Sometimes that's where you find your meaning. It's not when you're the happiest. It's when you're like the most depressed, or when you've been in the depths, when you've been, under the throes of addiction or through a poor relationship. You see what that is, and you don't want that. So maybe we can make the world not be like that. That's like the agency in the negative again. So that's Terra, finding her identity once the world's destroyed. And we have Celes. Now, Celes is artificially infused with magic. She has like unearned power, whereas Terra's was mysterious and the power of the unknown. Hers was unearned, and she had her identity thrust upon her, and she refused it. She refused to be part of that mass that would just slay the innocent for power's sake. You get rid of dignity if power is the language. One of the biggest differences between these two characters, the Celes and Terra, is that she resisted alone the ideals that the Emperor had. So Terra had help. Celes, with her own vocation, just was like, nope, not doing what you tell me to, because it's straight up not. It's like internal moral conviction. It's empathy for the other side. And empathy is an amazing human trait. And you can choose not to feel it. You can kill yourself. And that's kind of what Shadow does, the ninja character in the game. Destroys his empathy. But he still has some in him. I mean, you could tell he has a daughter in the game, and he has a dog, so he cares for something. Celes is rescued by Locke. He cuts off her chains or whatever, unlocks her chains. And then she places her trust in him, and she really has she has no choice. She sort of does have a choice, but she doesn't think she's worthy of helping. She's like, look, I can't walk out of the dungeon. And he's like, whatever, walk it off. But later on, her savior doubts her because of her past. And that's an extremely feminine trait. You'll probably notice this if you look at how the masculine and the feminine kind of joust with each other. So the antisocial behavior for the feminine women is you destroy their past. You insult them, you berate them, you get rid of their innocence. Well, that's what women do to women. And what the masculine does is we destroy our future. If in the antisocial extremes, we fight with fists. So that's marring the person. That's destroying their future. So this is kind of what Kefka does to Celes. He says, you were double-crossing your friends. And then they start to doubt her past. They start to doubt her innocence. And she has to do something significant and immediate to justify, or rather to disprove what he says. And what's really interesting is this character who refused her identity, was doubted constantly, then becomes the backbone of unity once the world's destroyed. Like she reaches out and she grabs all the characters back and unites them. Like, we can still do this. The world might be like dark and black, but it could be even worse, and we need to stop that. Rebuilding can happen. You gotta have some hope. Just an offside about Celes. The only time in the game, and I played it probably like 4 times now. The last time I played it, because I'm playing in front of my kids, obviously, I beat it with a character in each party at the last stage in like 12 hours. Because I figured out a couple things you could do in that game, and you guys probably have too. But the thing that gives me the most anxiety in that game is, like, you have to sing an opera song as Celes. And I always get high anxiety when I gotta hit the right line. I always feel like I'm gonna mess up, and I never have. But it's just that anxiety, man, it gets me. Anyway, so on to Locke. Locke is a character that it takes you a while to figure out. So Locke had his identity. His identity was lost. So it's very identity driven, this game. He has this need to protect people, specifically the feminine, because he had a lover or girlfriend in the past named Rachel. And while he was exploring, because he's an extreme outgoing personality, he's like, let's go look at all this stuff, let's go explore, let's go get treasure. He's adventurous, and he wants to take the feminine with him. Like, look at all this. He wants somebody there with him, a partner. That's good. And she falls down a cliff or something and loses her memory. And because of that, her father kicked him out because she didn't even recognize him. She didn't recognize her dad. And she's just like, you know what, you're causing a disturbance, Locke, you should get out of here. That was her without memory of him telling him to leave. And that was devastating. So he has this sense of love and duty constantly on his mind. Now, the problem with that is you might end up protecting and loving the wrong thing. If your heart is that open, you got to be not so compulsive. You got to be kind of restrained on where you direct your aim. But this guy's pull is so strong that even after the calamity in the world, he's still like looking for an Esper that'll bring Rachel back. She's like unconscious around a bed of roses in a state of stasis or something like that. And he eventually does find a cure for her, but she's only allowed to live for like a couple minutes and she leaves. But that like frees him from his compulsive sense of duty. But if he didn't have that, he would never have protected Celes, and he would have never protected Terra. That was an essential thing that had to happen for the future. So it's amazing how his past is, the wretchedness that happened during that moment brought opportunity in the future for like so much more. Literally the resaving of the world. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? So then I gotta go over just one more character, and that's Kefka. But Kefka is necessary. Kefka is power incarnate. He's power without reason. He's sociopathic, so if you're not familiar, the difference between the sociopath and a psychopath is a sociopath chooses what he does. Psychopath can't help it. Kefka definitely chooses what he does. And he's narcissistic and sarcastic, and nothing is higher than him. He is not subject to anything, including his emperor, who he just kind of tosses aside, throws off the floating continent. So that's roughly the devil. Because that's, even in the scriptures, that's what the devil is. The devil doesn't hold himself accountable to anybody higher, regardless if it exists or not. That's different. The extreme difference between the devil and Christ. Christ holds himself accountable to the Father, to a higher standard, an eternal standard. The devil does not. So that's Kefka in a nutshell. He also aims for the highest possible thing power-wise, and he gets it. But that's not enough. He needs to, after he gets all the power, he needs to destroy everything and make a monument to nothing. So he also represents the void, because in a mortal life, the void is inevitable. If you put all your stock in the mortal coil you are currently donning, well, your stock is going to end because we know we all are finite. We're all going to end someday. So that's also Kefka. Kefka's, I'm going to make a monument to nothingness because nothing makes any sense. And he's all sarcastic, doesn't take anything seriously, but he has emotional outbursts and he's just all raw power. The thing that gets me about Kefka is he's resistant to life. He is the void. He's narcissistic. He's sociopathic. And he's a clown. So the people that talk in language of power, as if power is all there is in this planet, that is exactly what they are. Void of reason, void of dignity, void of giving life a chance, void of giving life a sort of sacredness. Because in the void of the cosmos, if it's all just math, life is exactly that. It's a weird anomaly, man. And you can choose to say it's just, nothingness. We're just atoms and time plus matter plus chance. That's making a mockery of the sacredness of life. It really is. But if you don't subject yourself to something higher, if you don't say there is a purpose for life, maybe it's just to interact with itself. Maybe it's a conversation we have with ourselves. That's a Carl Jung thing. But if there is nothing else that's higher, well, that's like Nine Inch Nails in the downward spiral. You go in so far and down so deep, like who cares? Nothing matters anyway. So what does that mean? What is the moral of this story? What is it about this that calls out to you and me? This awesome game of our past. I don't know about you, but I always had Locke in my party. Like all the time. It seemed like he needed to be there. He was the agency that got things rolling. So he's like the adventurer, the Indiana Jones of the whole thing. So I always had Terra, Celes, him, and some other dude. But now I let my kids choose whoever, and I chose, if you play the game a couple times, you choose different characters. They say different things, which is also kind of interesting and was a new thing. It wasn't very linear. There was a little bit of wiggle room you could have. So I wrote this down and tried to script it, because it's important. Because the only reason anything like this calls out to you and me is if it echoes into reality, echoes the life we're living right now. So in life, we strive for identity, which every one of those characters did. Purpose and structure from within. We live against tragedy and malevolence. That's Kefka. But only after our character's established, lest we be lost with no point of reference. So that's the ground beneath our feet. And not only is it that, it's the hands we hold as we march into the future, or even into the void, armed with what we know in the world of the known, going into the unknown, which is the void. And our aim must go beyond ourselves. We must. So what are they doing? They're protecting the rest of the planet by destroying Kefka. Because you have to, and maybe a bigger aim there is the worst part of the world. You have to take ownership of, and you have to face it. And if you're not gonna do it, who will? Your children? All those children Tara was protecting? The ruined towns, the people that can't fight, are they gonna do it? Or are you gonna do it? And that's one of the biggest struggles of duty that like everybody has, especially in this culture these days. What are you gonna fight for? What are you gonna work for that's worth working for? Because there has to be dignity in that, and there has to be dignity into the future that's beyond that. Like it's both at the same time. It's a both and system there. So that's what I think that game kind of rounds up to you and me. I'm trying to establish my identity even now and try to maybe solidify it. And then I'm trying to work for something in the future. For me, it's like apologetics and martial arts. Those are my big two. I just happen to have a day job. That pays for my house. That's a great thing. But you need to live for a lot more if you want purpose and structure and character in your life. You have to. And if you're having difficulty finding that, well, look around you and see what you can pick up with your hands. Pick up the heaviest thing you could possibly find. Judge your skill sets that you have up till now. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate you clicking the like and subscribe. Check out this video up here that YouTube recommends, and we can see what else life has to offer that throws the hero's journey out at us.